Alright guys, so you have all read the title of today's video and you know exactly what we are doing. We have flipped the German league. So as you guys can see in the Bundesliga, all teams are Bundesliga 3 teams. And in the third Bundesliga, every single team is a Bundesliga team. However, you might realize something, that there's obviously also a second Bundesliga. But because 3 is obviously an odd number, I have just decided that I will just leave the Bundesliga 2 alone. And then the teams from the first Bundesliga will go down to the third and vice versa. You may also realize that the Bundesliga only has 18 teams, while the third Bundesliga actually does have a whole 20 teams. So basically what I've done is I've just taken the last 2 third Bundesliga teams and put them in the second Bundesliga. And then I've taken Schalke and Hertha Berlin and just put them down in the third Bundesliga. And the 2 teams that I've taken are Lübeck, who I'm controlling right now, and then also Viktoria Köln. So they should be in the Bundesliga right now, but they are just in the second Bundesliga. But anyways, I will be simulating 10 seasons just as I did in the other video, and then we will see what will happen. But I also just want to show you guys the Champions League groups. I put 1860 Munich instead of Bayern Munich in their group. Then I put Sandhausen instead of Union Berlin. And then I put Dresden instead of Dortmund. And then I don't know why I put Dortmund 2 here, but I did put Dortmund 2 in instead of Leipzig. That was actually supposed to go in Group F, but they are in Group G now, whatever. And I didn't really change the teams in the Europa League. But we've got Waldhof here in Group H. And in Group B in the Conference League, we've got Preußen and Münster. So without further ado, let's just simulate to the end of the first season to see what will happen. Alright guys, so the first season is over, and as you guys can see, we basically already got sacked, but that is because the team that we controlled were absolutely horrible. So we did get the job for the other third Bundesliga team, who are now in the second Bundesliga. But either way, in the Bundesliga, it would be Arminia Bielefeld winning the league, who actually were in the Bundesliga a couple of seasons ago. And then we have 1860 Munich and Dynamo Dresden and Saarbrücken finishing in the other Champions League spots. Actually, Saarbrücken, who just knocked out Bayern Munich in the DFB Pokal a couple of days ago when I'm recording this video. And then Sandhausen and Regensburg getting the 2 last European spots, with Duisburg also finishing on the exact same amount of points as Regensburg, but Regensburg just finished on a better goal difference. And then we got a team like Ingolstadt in 9th, who were also a Bundesliga team a couple of seasons ago. But going straight down are Ulm and Borussia Dortmund 2, with Preußen Münster fighting in the relegation playoff, where they will be meeting Nuremberg, and it is gonna be Hamburger and Paderborn going straight up to the first Bundesliga. And here we got Wiesbaden and Lübeck going straight down, with Elversberg partaking in the relegation playoff, where they will be facing Bayer Leverkusen, and quite unsurprisingly, Bayern Munich finished first and they will be going straight up to the second Bundesliga. And then we got RB Leipzig coming in second. But quite surprisingly, Dortmund actually did not finish in the top 3, so they will have to stay down here for at least one more season. And Nuremberg, they will be promoted to the Bundesliga after beating Preußen Münster 3-2 in the playoffs. And of course, Leverkusen, they will also join the second Bundesliga after beating Elversberg 5-1. The DFB Pokal was won by Borussia Mönchengladbach, who beat Dresden 3-1 in the final. Dresden, who actually finished third in the Bundesliga. And in the Champions League, 1860 Munich would obviously finish bottom of their group, but they did manage to win 1 game, which, surprise surprise, came against Manchester United at Old Trafford of all places. Sandhausen, however, they did far worse, going 6 for 6 on the losses. And Dynamo Dresden, in the group of death, actually managed to get 1 win and 1 draw. They managed to get a win against Newcastle and get a draw against AC Milan. And then we got Dortmund 2, who also managed to win a game and draw 1 game. But unfortunately, we don't have a single team yet to reach the knockouts, or even just to get third to get Europa League. But we did have one team in the Europa League, and that is SV Waldhof, who did finish third in their group, getting 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses, meaning that they will go down to the Conference League. And Preußen Münster, who were the German team in the Conference League, they finished bottom of their group. And sadly, Waldhof, they lost in the preliminary round 4-1 on aggregate to AIK from Sweden. Alright guys, so season 2 is over, and in the Bundesliga, it was Hamburger who won the title. Obviously, they did get promoted last season, and they're back to winning ways by winning the Bundesliga for the first time in many years. And then we have Nuremberg finishing second, who did get promoted through the playoffs. Saarbrücken and 1860 Munich are third and fourth, and then Dynamo Dresden and Regensburg in 6th. So the top is pretty much the same. And then Paderborn, who also got promoted, they finished in 12th. Relegated are Rot-Weiß Essen. Wait, doesn't Essen mean food in German? And then Unterhaching also got relegated. And then we've got this team that I'm not gonna try to pronounce. We've got them in the relegation playoffs. And they will be facing off against Leverkusen, and obviously it is Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig getting back-to-back promotion, and they will be playing in the Bundesliga next season. So we've already got 2 teams and possibly 3 teams that are all the way back in the Bundesliga. And relegated are Preußen Münster and Borussia Dortmund 2. Holstein Kiel finished in 16th, and they will be facing off against Wolfsburg, while Borussia Dortmund and Hoffenheim get promoted. In the DFB Pokal, it would be Freiburg winning against Rot-Weiß, who did get relegated, and they beat Hertha Berlin in the semi-final, and they also beat Union Berlin in the quarterfinals alongside Köln in round 3, so they haven't really knocked out a single big team. Unterhaching, who was the other relegation team, they also did beat in round 2, so they haven't knocked out a single big team, so they've had a quite easy way all the way to the final, but they did eventually lose that to Freiburg. And the relegation playoff ended 1-1, which I don't know what that means. I guess we'll just have to wait and see next season which team will be playing in the Bundesliga. And between Wolfsburg and Holstein Kiel, it would be Wolfsburg winning that one. In the Champions League, Arminia Bielefeld finished 4th in a quite tough group. They did manage to get 1 win against Atalanta and then also get a draw against Ajax. For Saarbrücken, it was also very tough. They also finished 4th on 2 points. The same can be said for Dynamo Dresden, 4th with only 2 points. And then we got 1860 Munich, also 4th on 4 points. So again, not a single team making it out of the groups, not even going to the Europa League. But we did have some teams in the Europa League, and one of those teams are Gladbach, who finished 4th in their group with Brøndby, Lech Poznan and Spurs. Very surprisingly, they should definitely finish 2nd. And our other team is Sandhausen, who also finished 4th in their Europa League group. So everyone has finished 4th so far this season. And that will stay the same for the Conference League, since Regensburg, they also finished 4th in their group. So a very disappointing season in terms of European success, because there wasn't really that much success, but let's hope that next season will be better. Alright guys, season 3 is over, and quite unsurprisingly, Bayern Munich have won the Bundesliga with Leverkusen coming in 2nd, but Hamburg are finishing in 3rd is actually very surprising. They finished above Leipzig in 4th, Nuremberg in 5th, and then Paderborn, who got promoted in the first season, they finished 6th, with Bielefeld in 7th, who did win the league in the first season, I believe. Saarbrücken and Dynamo Dresden, who were usually 3rd and 4th, are now in 10th and 12th. And then we got 1860 Munich all the way down in 14th. Relegated we have SC Verl and Jan Regensburg, with Duisburg getting into the relegation playoffs. And in the playoffs they will be facing Wolfsburg, and then we have Dortmund and Hoffenheim getting automatic promotion to the Bundesliga. Relegated we have this team that I couldn't pronounce, then we got Ulm and Rot-Weiß Essen. All 3 teams, I believe, did get relegated last season from the Bundesliga, so it might be back-to-back relegation for all 3 of those teams. And in the 3 Bundesliga, it will be Union Berlin and Augsburg getting promoted straight up to the 2 Bundesliga. They will have Frankfurt, who will be going up against Rot-Weiß Essen in the relegation playoffs. Gladbach finished in 4th, just 1 point behind Frankfurt. And we got Preußen Münster all the way down in 18th in the 3 Bundesliga, who did start off in the Bundesliga. So they've fallen down every single season, and if there was a tier below this, they would have fallen down into that tier as well. In the DFB Pokal, it would be Borussia Dortmund winning 4-2 against Wolfsburg, and it would actually be Duisburg beating Wolfsburg in the relegation playoffs. So they will be staying in the Bundesliga, and Wolfsburg will be staying in the 2 Bundesliga. And then we've got Frankfurt beating Rot-Weiß Essen 5-1 on aggregate to secure that they will be promoted to the 2 Bundesliga, and Rot-Weiß Essen will get relegated to the 3 Bundesliga. Although Hamburg did very well in the league, they managed to only finish 4th in their Champions League group. The same can be said for Nuremberg. They also had a very difficult group. 1860 Munich as well, and they also did not actually do that well in the league. And Saarbrücken as well, they finished 6 for 6 on the losses. So again, not a single team going to the knockout stages, and not even a single team actually going to the Europa League. But we still have teams in the Europa League, and one of them is Dynamo Dresden, who also finished 4th. And the second one is Freiburg, who actually finished 2nd in their group. Finally a team that is capable of doing something in Europe. But they weren't capable of doing that much. They did lose in the preliminary round 6-5 on aggregate to FC Porto. And in the Conference League we have Jan Regensburg finishing 4th. Now I really want to see some of Hamburg's players since they finished 3rd in the Bundesliga, so I'm gonna scout some of them and take a look at their ratings. Alright, so I've taken a look at Hamburg's team, and they actually do have a very good team. They've got 2 78 rated players, then they've got a couple of 77s and a few 75s, but they are also a team with a lot of money to start off with. And of course, by winning the Bundesliga they got a lot of money, but it's very nice to see that the AI is actually spending money. So let's see where this can take them. Let's simulate to the end of the 4th season to see where they will finish. So the 4th season is now over, and it was Borussia Dortmund who won the Bundesliga, with Bayern finishing in 2nd, second, Leverkusen third, Leipzig fourth, and then Hamburger in fifth, followed up by Dynamo Dresden in sixth to secure all of the European spots for next season. Relegated are Freiburg second team and 1860 Munich, who I do believe finished like second in the first season. And then we've got Duisburg in the relegation playoffs, where they will be facing Union Berlin. And promoted straight up to the Bundesliga are FC Augsburg and Hannover. Wolfsburg finishing in fifth, quite shockingly, and also Frankfurt in seventh. I mean, you would definitely expect those two teams to finish a lot higher. Relegated are Osnabrück and Unterhaching, with Braunschweig getting in the relegation playoffs. And in the relegation playoff, they will be facing off against Borussia Mönchengladbach. And I think the Gladbach, they will win this game, and promoted straight up to the second Bundesliga are Hertha Berlin and Stuttgart. And in the DFB Pokal, we actually managed to make the final, where we lost 2-0 to Paderborn, who finished 7th in the Bundesliga. We did manage to knock out Bayern Munich in the semifinals. But in the Champions League, we would finally see a team not finishing 4th. This time RB Leipzig finished 3rd in their group. But we would see another team finish 4th, which is Hamburger. They finished 4th in their group, consisting of Villarreal, AS Monaco and Manchester City. And then we've got Bayern topping their group of PSG, Salzburg and Rangers. We also sadly have Leverkusen finishing 4th in their group. And in the round of 16, Bayern Munich, they would lose 7-2 on aggregate to Liverpool. In the Europa League though, we do have Borussia Dortmund finishing 2nd in their group and Nuremberg finishing last in their group with 0 points. And sadly Dortmund, they would get knocked out in the preliminary round to Olympique Marseille 2-1 on aggregate. And Leipzig, they will go on to lose 2-1 to Osasuna on aggregate in the round of 16. In the Conference League, we did have Paderborn finishing 1st in their group, and they would make it all the way to the quarterfinals, where they did lose 5-3 to Chelsea on aggregate. So it's not really been a bad season for the German teams in Europe. You could definitely see that they have improved a lot since the first, second and third season. But let's see if next season maybe a German team can actually win some European silverware. The 5th season is, oh my lord, Bayern finished in 6th. Okay, hold on. I don't even know what to say. The 5th season is over. Augsburg 5th. They just got promoted. Okay, hold on. Right, 5th season is now over. Leverkusen finished 1st in the Bundesliga, with Hoffenheim coming in 2nd, Dortmund in 3rd, Leipzig 4th. Not too much out of the ordinary apart from Bayern not being in there. Then we've got Augsburg in 5th and Bayern Munich in 6th. Hanover 7th, who also just got promoted last season. Then Dresden 8th, Hamburger 9th, Nuremberg 10th. We got Waldhof and Hallescher getting relegated, and Paderborn in the relegation playoff, who I do believe, yeah, they did win the DFB Pokal against us last season. And they also did finish 7th in the league last season. And now they are in the relegation playoffs. By the way, I forgot to show you guys the relegation playoffs for last season, or at least the results of them. But this has been a very shocking season in the Bundesliga. I might have to take a look at Augsburg's team. Also Hannover, who finished so high in the table despite just getting promoted. But in the Zweite Bundesliga, it would be us winning the league, with Wolfsburg finishing 2nd. And SC Verl, who got relegated a few seasons ago, are now in the promotional playoffs, where they will be facing Paderborn. And going down are Kaiserslautern and Braunschweig, with Duisburg getting back-to-back relegation playoffs. And in the Dreie Bundesliga, finally Gladbach, they do get promoted alongside Mainz. And Werder Bremen, they do go into the playoffs. And quite shockingly, we actually have Freiburg all the way down in 10th still in the Dreie Bundesliga. You would definitely expect them to finish above Osnabrück and Darmstadt and Holstein Kiel. But anyways, Leipzig would win the DFB Pokal 2-1 against Dortmund, and SC Verl will now go up to the Bundesliga after beating Paderborn. It ended 2-2, but they did win on away goals. And quite unsurprisingly, Werder Bremen will now go up to the Zweite Bundesliga. In the Champions League, quite surprisingly, Dortmund actually finished 3rd in their group. We also have Leipzig finishing 3rd in theirs, and Leverkusen did manage to finish 2nd in their group, which is very good to see. Bayern finished 3rd in a group with Celtic, United and Roma. Anyways, in the round of 16, Leverkusen sadly already went out. They drew AS Monaco 3-3 on aggregate, but then lost 4-2 on penalties. And in the Europa League, Hamburger, they actually did manage to advance from their group, and the same can be said for Paderborn, who finished 2nd in their group despite getting relegated. Now Bayern, they actually did get knocked out to Olympique Marseille 4-2 on aggregate in the preliminary rounds, and the same can be said for Hamburger, who got knocked out 4-2 to Rennes. Dortmund, we lost them in the round of 16. They did lose 5-3 on aggregate to Porto, and Porto would also knock out Paderborn 5-2 on aggregate in the quarterfinals. In the Conference League, quite surprisingly, Dynamo Dresden finished top of their group, and they would go all the way to the quarterfinals, where they would eventually lose 4-2 on aggregate to Liverpool. So quite a weird and shocking season. I will take a look at some of the teams just to see how they're doing, and if they have some very good players, then I will obviously update you guys on that. But if they don't, don't, I'll just see you guys at the very next season. Okay, so I decided to check Augsburg's team, and they do and did have some pretty good players. They do have Anderson Talisca actually, and they've also got Sanz, who is 79 rated. Then they've also got an 80 rated right back, and last season they loaned in Roberto Alvarado from Leverkusen, Daniel Jefferson from Celtic, and Diomande from Lyon. So they really knew how to run the loan market, but with these three gone now, I am really excited to see where they will finish this season. I also decided to look at Hanover's team, and they've actually also got a pretty strong squad with some players in the high 70s. Alright guys, season 6 is now over, and Bayern Munich finished top of the table with Dortmund in second, Hoffenheim, Leverkusen, Leipzig, and then ourselves actually in 6th. Augsburg finished in 7th, who were very good last season, and quite shockingly Wolfsburg finished all the way down in 12th. We got Saarbrücken and SC Val getting relegated straight away, with Ingolstadt fighting in the relegation playoffs, and they will be facing Frankfurt, and SC Paderborn and Stuttgart get promoted straight up to the Bundesliga. And then we got Hansa Rostock and Karlsruhe getting relegated to the 3 Bundesliga, with Fürth going into the relegation playoffs. And they will be facing Schalke in the relegation playoffs, with Köln and Freiburg getting promoted straight up to the 2 Bundesliga. And we got our old team Lübeck finishing at the bottom of the 3 Bundesliga, so no wonder that I couldn't save them. And it would be Frankfurt getting promoted to the Bundesliga, beating Ingolstadt 4-1 on aggregate. And I don't know why, but I cannot look at the other playoff now. I think it's because I am in the Bundesliga. I mean, that has to be the reason. But anyway, I can still look at the DFB Pokal, and that was won by Dortmund over Bayern. And in the Champions League, again, we have another team finishing 4th, with Leipzig finishing 4th only on 1 point, which is highly disappointing. Then we also got Leverkusen finishing in 3rd, where they probably should finish either 2nd or 1st, and Hoffenheim also finishing 3rd. But we do have Dortmund in their group finishing 1st, so they will be the only team advancing from their group. But they would go on to lose 5-2 to Manchester City in the round of 16. In the Europa League, Augsburg, they would finish 3rd in their group, so they will be dropping down to the Conference League. Then we got Bayern finishing 2nd in their group behind Spurs. And in the preliminary round, we have Leverkusen winning over Porto 9-8 on penalties after a 2-2 aggregate result. But Bayern Munich, they would get knocked out in the round of 16, 6-5 on penalties to Lille, and they drew 4-4 on aggregate. Hoffenheim as well, they lost 4-3 to Olympique Marseille on aggregate. And then Leverkusen, who lost 4-2 on penalties after another 4-4 aggregate against Real Sociedad. So apparently no teams can make it past the round of 16 in both the Champions League and the Europa League. Let's see about the Conference League. Hanover, they did make it through the group. They did finish 2nd in their group, which is very good to see. But in the preliminary rounds, Augsburg, they did lose 4-3 to Ghent. And Hanover, of course, surprise, surprise, they lost 5-2 on aggregate to Newcastle United. So there is a round of 16 curse right here. It's funny because this experiment always ruins all the teams in Europe for this certain country that we're using. But let's see what's in store for us the next season. Maybe someone can actually make it out of round of 16, and maybe it would be ourselves since we are in the Europa League. Okay, so season 7 is now over, and Dortmund won the league. We actually finished 2nd, only 3 points behind them. Then Leverkusen in 3rd, Bayern in 4th, and Leipzig in 5th, with Paderborn coming in at 6th, who just got relegated a few seasons ago. Then Dynamo Dresden 7th, and Arminia Bielefeld 8th. Now, where did Augsburg, they actually finished 15th. Okay, that's pretty shocking. And Frankfurt finished 16th, with Hanover and Nuremberg getting relegated. Then we have Ingolstadt and Saarbrücken getting promoted from the 2 Bundesliga, and Frankfurt, they will be facing off against Gladbach in the relegation playoffs, so that's a very exciting matchup. Relegated are SC Val and Magdeburg, and Fürth are in the relegation playoffs yet again. I believe they were in the relegation playoffs last season as well. And we got the likes of 1860 Munich sitting mid-table in the 2 Bundesliga. I'm pretty sure that they finished 2nd or 1st in the first season. I'm pretty sure that they finished 2nd, but here after 7 seasons, they're now sitting mid-table in the 2nd Bundesliga. And Fürth, they will be facing Darmstadt in the relegation playoffs. And then we got Duisburg, who were in the Bundesliga a couple of seasons ago, getting promoted, and Unterhaching, I think they were also in the Bundesliga as well. And then we got a usual Bundesliga team in Schalke still being all the way down here in the 3 Bundesliga, and also Bochum, they are also down here. But Augsburg would actually win in the DFB Pokal against the team that I couldn't pronounce, but I think that they are in the 3 Bundesliga actually. Let me just check one more time. Yes, they are. They finished 4th in the 3 Bundesliga, and they managed to make it all the way to the DFB Pokal final. Let's see who they beat on their way. So they did beat Paderborn, who finished in the European spots in the Bundesliga. They also beat Arminia Bielefeld, who are also in the Bundesliga, as well as FC Köln and Saarbrücken in round 2. And in round 1 they beat Mainz. Okay, so not bad teams that they've beaten, especially considering that they are in the Bundesliga. But in the relegation playoffs, it would be Borussia Mönchengladbach punching up to take Frankfurt down to the Bundesliga, and now they are in the Bundesliga. But in the Champions League, where it all matters, we still have teams finishing in 4th. We got Hoffenheim in 4th in their group, but we have got Leverkusen 2nd in their group, making it to the knockout stages. The same can be said for Dortmund, who also finished 2nd in their group, and Bayern, they finished 1st in their group. Now, can anyone get past the round of 16? And the answer is yes. Borussia Dortmund, they do beat Villarreal 3-2 on aggregate, but Olympique Marseille beat Bayern 4-1, and Juventus, they beat Leverkusen 3-0. I swear Olympique Marseille, they always beat the German teams. And Dortmund, they would go on to lose in the quarterfinals 5-1 to Arsenal. In the Europa League, RB Leipzig, they finished 2nd in their group, and we also finished 2nd in our group. Now Leipzig, they would get knocked out to Napoli 4-3 on aggregate in the preliminary rounds, and we would go on to lose 5-3 on aggregate to Newcastle in the quarterfinals. And in the Conference League, Augsburg, they finished 3rd, but they will partake in that as well next season because they won the DFB Pokal, either that or the Europa League. So the 8th season is now over, and it would be RB Leipzig winning the league, with Bayern coming in at 2nd, and then us finishing in 3rd, with Dortmund following closely behind, and then Leverkusen and Hamburger to finish the European spots. And Augsburg, they are sitting 14th, but relegated we have Gladbach, which is actually quite shocking, and then Saarbrücken, and then we've got Dynamo Dresden, who are actually a very good team. We have them in the relegation playoffs. I'm gonna scout some of their players because I'm pretty sure that they do have a very good team. Yeah, you guys can see they've definitely got some players that are like at least 80 overall rated. While we're waiting for the scout report, I can tell you guys that they will be facing off against Frankfurt in the relegation playoffs. And I do believe that Frankfurt, they also finished in the playoffs last season, but they did lose. And then we've got Hannover and Nuremberg getting promoted straight up to the Bundesliga, so they will return to the Bundesliga. We've got Jan Regensburg and Unterhaching getting relegated, and then we've got SC Freiburg in the relegation playoffs. And they will be facing Karlsruhe, and we have Hansa Rostock and Schalke getting promoted to the Bundesliga. We've still got the likes of Bochum sitting all the way down in 15th. So I would definitely say that they are the team who have suffered the most from this experiment. I guess Heidenheim as well, but they are usually a Bundesliga 2 or 3 team. Actually, they just got promoted from like the 5th tier. And in the DFB Pokal, we would lose in the final 1-0 to Frankfurt, who are obviously contending for a Bundesliga spot. They are in the playoffs. And they did actually manage to win the playoffs against Dynamo Dresden 2-1 on aggregate. So they will be playing Bundesliga football next season, while Dynamo Dresden will be playing in the Bundesliga. In the Champions League, Leverkusen, they would finish 2nd in their group. Bayern would finish 3rd. I believe this is the 2nd time that they finished 3rd. And we have Dortmund finishing 3rd as well. And so did we in our group. And Leverkusen, they made it all the way to the semi-finals, getting knocked out 4-3 on aggregate by Napoli, who eventually made the final but did lose 3-1 to PSG. And in the Europa League, we got Leipzig finishing 2nd in their group, as well as Augsburg finishing 3rd in their group. Now we do see Leipzig and Bayern Munich getting knocked out in the preliminary rounds, with ourselves and Dortmund just pushing through. But Dortmund, they would eventually lose in the round of 16 to AS Monaco 4-3 on aggregate, and we would end up in the semi-finals, where we did face off against Villarreal, losing 5-3 to them on aggregate, and they eventually won the whole thing. In the Conference League, we got Paderborn finishing 2nd in their group, and in the preliminary rounds, Augsburg, they would lose 5-4 to Ajax. And Paderborn, they would lose 3-1 to Torino in the round of 16. So we are starting to see a bit more success in Europe, but anyways, let's just simulate a couple of days to take a look at the scout reports from Dresden. Okay, so I've already gotten a few scout reports back here, and you can see that they actually have some pretty good players. We've got an 81 rated here, 76, and then also another 81 here. So this really isn't a team that should get relegated from the Bundesliga. We also have Marquinhos here, who does play for Arsenal in real life, another 81 rated player. And then we got this guy, an 80 rated player. So by the looks of it, they shouldn't really get relegated at all if you're looking at their whole team. Even their goalkeeper looks to be quite good. Okay guys, so the 9th season is now over, and as you guys can see, we won the league literally on goal difference, with just 1 goal above Wolfsburg. Not 1 goal, but 1 more in goal difference. They finished 2nd, Dortmund in 3rd, Leverkusen 4th, and Bayern in 5th, with Arminia Bielefeld climbing the ranks to finish in 6th. And Frankfurt, who just got promoted last season through the playoffs, they managed to finish in 9th. Leipzig, who won the league last year, finished in 8th. Then we got Augsburg in the relegation playoffs, with Paderborn actually getting relegated alongside Ingolstadt. And in the Bundesliga, of course, you guessed it, it would be Dynamo Dresden winning the league, with Gladbach finishing in 2nd, and then 1860 Munich competing against Augsburg for the spot in the Bundesliga next season. Schalke, who just got promoted to the 2 Bundesliga last season, finished in 6th. And going down are Freiburg actually and Hansa Rostock. And then we've got Mainz in the relegation playoffs, where they will face off against a team that I don't know how to pronounce and I won't even try. We got Borussia Dortmund 2nd and Jan Regensburg getting promoted. Didn't Borussia Dortmund 2nd finish like 14th last season in this league? I'm pretty sure they did. And we still got Bochum at the very bottom, sitting 17th out of 20 teams. And in the DFB Pokal, we would make the final for a 3rd time, but we did lose to newly promoted Hannover, who got promoted last season. And in the relegation playoffs, it would be Augsburg beating 1860 Munich 4-1 on aggregate to ensure that they will stay in the Bundesliga. In the Champions League, Borussia Dortmund, they topped their group, so did Leipzig. Bayern finished in 3rd for I think a 3rd season. It's definitely the 2nd season in a row. We also managed to top our group, but Dortmund, they lost in a round of 16 to Liverpool 2-0 on aggregate, and Leipzig, they lost 8-2 on aggregate to Manchester City in the quarterfinals. And we lost in the quarterfinals as well, 4-4 on aggregate against Liverpool, but they went on to win 3-1 on penalties. In the Europa League, we have Leverkusen finishing 2nd in their group, and then we got Frankfurt finishing 3rd in their group. And in the preliminary rounds, Bayern, they actually lost 4-2 to Celta Vigo, which is pretty impressive, I would say. And then we have Leverkusen falling short to Newcastle in the round of 16, losing 3-2 on aggregate. And in the Conference League, we have Hamburger finishing 3rd in their group, which does not give them anything. But we also have Frankfurt, who finished 3rd in the Europa League group, but they managed to lose 4-1 on aggregate to Bologna in the preliminary rounds. So not really a good season for the German teams, but let's simulate the 10th and final season to see if someone can win the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. Alright people, I gotta be honest, I got sacked from Victoria Köln because I just simulated the last season through the calendar. And anyways, it would end up being Leipzig winning the league and Wolfsburg coming in 2nd, my old team in 3rd, Dortmund 4th, Bayern 5th, and then Leverkusen in 6th. So pretty traditional top 6 apart from obviously Victoria Köln. Augsburg now climbing the ranks, finishing in 7th. We've actually got Dynamo Dresden just barely surviving relegation. Frankfurt also, holy shit, they've actually got, hold on, wait, what? So Stuttgart and Frankfurt have both got 29 points and a negative goal difference of -22. But I believe because Frankfurt have scored more goals, then they are in the relegation playoffs instead of just getting directly relegated, which is kind of insane to think about it. If it is put that way, it could also just be on head-to-head, I don't know. But if it's on the goals forward, it would be pretty insane. And then in the 2 Bundesliga, Paderborn will be facing off against Frankfurt, and we got Saarbrücken and Ingolstadt getting promoted straight away, with 1860 Munich just missing the playoffs as they pretty much do every year alongside Köln. And then we got Mainz, I believe, getting back-to-back relegation, with Dortmund 2nd in the relegation playoffs. Didn't they just get promoted last year? Or sorry, 2 years ago? They just got promoted to the Bundesliga, then they got relegated, and now they are facing another relegation. We got Fürth going down alongside Mainz, but let's see who Dortmund 2nd they will be facing. They will be facing Karlsruhe in the relegation playoffs, with Werl and the team that I don't know how to pronounce getting promoted straight away. We got Freiburg all the way down in the 3 Bundesliga, so they're actually below Freiburg's 2nd team. Rot-Weiß Essen and Preußen Münster, who were both in the Bundesliga the first season, finished bottom of the 3 Bundesliga. Preußen Münster, who were actually in the Conference League, I'm pretty sure, now sit bottom of the 3 Bundesliga after 10 seasons. How the tables have turned. But now let's take a look at the DFB Pokal, where Sandhausen went on to win the whole competition. In the relegation playoffs, it would be Paderborn winning against Frankfurt, punching up. And in the Champions League, Wolfsburg finished 3rd in their group, with Dortmund topping their group, ourselves as well topping our group, and then Leverkusen finishing 3rd in their group. So Dortmund, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals at the hands of Benfica 3-1 on aggregate, and we also got knocked out 4-2 on aggregate to Manchester City. In the Europa League, it would be Hannover finishing 3rd in their group, and then Bayern again finishing 3rd in a group, but this time it is in the Europa League, which is very surprising. And then in the preliminary round, we would have Leverkusen losing 5-4 on aggregate to Basel. Then we've got Wolfsburg making it all the way to the semifinals, where they lost 3-2 to Ajax, who were the eventual winners of the Europa League. And in the Conference League, we have a winner. Arminia Bielefeld wins the Conference League against Lazio, who finished 11th in the Serie A. I don't know if this is our first or maybe second winner in Europe, but I think that we have not crossed 2 winners yet. Or not yet, but for this whole video, because this video is done after this. But let's just take a look at some of the groups. So yeah, Bielefeld, they were the only one getting drawn into the group stages, and they actually went through the preliminary rounds. And Bayern, they also did. They did win 5-2 against Galatasaray. They then got knocked out by Lazio, who Arminia Bielefeld they beat in the final. Bielefeld knocked out AZ Alkmaar on the way, as well as Malmö and Olympique Lyon. Okay, so that is a pretty good run. But anyways, that is all for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the very next video.